And continue on with the, starting on my left,
Heather Fram.
Michael Martin.
Christy Morris,
Michael Schmidt.
recognizing the absence of Tara Chase, and Steve Caraco will not be with us this evening.
Yeah, I did meet with Tara last and through the agenda with her and everything, so.
Okay.
Through the packet, really.
So the first order of business is to adopt the regular select board meeting minutes of August 12th and the public hearing on the proposal Hartons Park weapon discharge ordinance of the same day, August 12th. I'd entertain a motion to adopt.
I move that we adopt both the regular select board meeting of August 12th and the public hearing of the Hartness Park weapons discharge of August 12th.
Second.
Thank you, members. We do have a motion and seconded to approve the minutes as printed and distributed. Are there any corrections, errors, or omissions noted? Really? I got the only one?
You got one?
I do. On page 3
Of 17.
of the, one of 17, page 3. The regular select board meeting minutes. And where it says seconded by Heather Fromm, way down here, the next to the last full sentence, it says Brownsfield is where they're going to host the alcoholic beverages, and that should be Robinson Field.
Yeah.
Brownfield is a football field. That was the only one that I had. Are there any others?
Nope.
Seeing, hearing none, I'll entertain a vote to adopt the 2 sets of minutes as printed and distributed with the one correction. Start on my left with the vote. Heather Fram,
Hi.
Mike Martin,
Mr. Martin says aye.
Christie Morris says aye, and Mike Smith.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative, recognizing the absence of Tara Chase. Do we have any requested additions to the agenda this evening?
I have,
None? Is the order of the
no change, the order on the agenda.
is
Good.
okay,
Excellent.
So I
excellent,
didn't dare add anything. We hear a while.
Yeah.
duly noted. Which brings us down to section D, which is new business. And item number 1 is to recognize the Brat Hypertherm Cleanup Day.
Thank you very much. On August 16th, well, I'll go back further. Okay, now I'm ready, I'm sorry. So each year, employees from Hypertherm volunteer a day and clean up a portion of the Black River. Not just in Springfield, but along the Black River. Back in April, Ryan Gay reached out to me from Hypertherm to see if there was a section in Springfield that they could work on. I put Ryan in touch with Kelly Stepner, knowing that Kelly knows a lot more about the Black River and its cleanup than I do. To see if there's something they might work on. And they got together, Kelly coordinated a section for cleanup. The work was done on August 16th. And the cleanup was a great success with 2.4 tons of material, and 125 tires in the riverbank area along the Black River.
Wow.
The cleanup made the front page of the local paper. I can't thank Kelly and Hypertherm volunteers enough for their efforts. I felt that such an effort deserves recognition by the board. Thank you, Kelly of BRAC, Black River Action Team, and Hypertherm for cleaning up, helping clean up Springfield. Thank you. And Kelly is here. I guess Ryan couldn't make it.
It is part of the annual Source to Sea cleanup that is led by the Connecticut River Conservancy. They do that annually. And I know Hypertherm is very active all along the Connecticut River. So it was really nice to be able to plug them into a 3-mile section of the Black River that needed some love. And it still needs some love even after River Sweep. And we got another 30 tires out of that stretch. Still needs some love. It's awesome to be able to do it. Thank you for making the connection.
And we had River Sweep this last weekend too, so.
That's great.
Busy.
Thank you.
Good
That's
job.
awesome.
So Kelly, while you have the floor, and thank you for all the efforts of Brett and of course Hypertherm for their assistance this time around. Would you like to talk a little bit about some of the other things that Brett does, such as the water quality testing?
Sure, I mean, I didn't prepare anything specific, but
I've got faith in you, Kelly.
you'll do what you think.
I think you've said it once or twice, so.
So, yeah, we do, water monitoring of a bunch of sites on the main river and on tributaries, all throughout the watershed, which is about 202 square miles. We do 7 lakes now, and I believe 8 swimming holes. We test for bacteria in the swimming holes. We connect with the lake monitoring program that the state of Vermont puts together for checking the clarity. We look for aquatic invasive plants. I want to get more into doing that kind of monitoring and control management. They're plants, you're never going to control them, but if we can monitor and manage. See, we also do a lot of outreach and education. We look at aquatic insects and I call them river bugs. We look at the biota that live in the water, because sometimes it's some species are more sensitive than others to different kinds of water quality threats and impacts. I'm also doing a lot more work this year on flooding, talking about floodplains and the importance of using them and recognizing them and letting them do what they need to do. And if anyone's around the area this coming Saturday, come on up to Cavendish, Proctorsville. I'll be at the Golden Honey Festival with the stream table, courtesy of the Ottaquechee Conservation District. So I'll be showing how streams work, and that'll be fun, and you get some cool food and check out bees and honey and stuff like that. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is on Friday, this Friday, yes, the 13th, I'll be leading a caravan, I hope, of select board members, planning commission members, zoning board members, all kinds of municipal entities to join me on a field trip down to Brattleboro. We're gonna go to check out the Burge Street floodplain restoration project that they did down there. So I'm renting a van in Ludlow, and I'm gonna stuff it full of people from up there. I'm gonna buy everybody a sandwich, and I'm gonna be driving down to Brattleboro. So if you wanna join the caravan, hit me up and I'll get you a sandwich. So, thank you, and stay tuned for the next great adventure.
Again, thank you, Kelly, and congratulations, by the way, for the recognition. That's it is important work that your group is, yourself and your group is doing.
You know, it's all comes together from volunteers. Makes a huge difference.
Understood. Okay, moving on to item number 2. The salt shed scoping study.
Okay, yeah, thank you. For the past few years, the town has been applying for grants to replace the salt shed. Last year, we were advised that our application would be much more competitive if we conducted a scoping study first. As a result, the town applied for and received funding for a scoping study. With the Scotty Region Commission coordinating the project, Boy and King were chosen to do the study. A part of the process is to have a local concern meeting. Chris Rivet, Chris Rivet, King, will be at the meeting to present the scope of the project, to listen to any concerns that we have as a community.
That one. So Jack gave a better introduction than I would have, so I guess I'll get right to it. We are working with the town and MARC on a scoping study for a new salt shed. You may all be aware that the shed has been in this location down by the recycling center and transfer station since the 80s, and has never had really any maintenance or anything. And it's the existing structure that we initially put in. So we're seeing a lot of damage to it now, including you can see some of the concrete walls are actually broken off. They have a lot of rust in a lot of the steel structure. The fabric is tearing. I think it's even been replaced once already. So given the condition and the size of it as well, the town is looking to replace it and potentially improve the operations down at this location. Or it was also brought up during our initial kickoff meeting, potentially looking at a different site, maybe up by the prison. But I think for the moment, we're gonna focus on The existing site, it's already been constructed on. There's, a little bit less, probably natural resources to deal with. Obviously, some of those are, related, with the river that we were just talking about. If you go to the next slide here. Yeah, I kind of went through what the purpose was here, and we're gonna focus on Fairgrounds Road. If you go to the next slide. The scoping study, it itself is, falls somewhere in between a strategic plan and actual construction design. Strategic plan being a high level, looking at the town overall, multiple projects. The scoping study actually picks out a project location and looks at different alternatives for it. So we'll be looking at alternatives, mostly, it's gonna focus on, come down to the next slide, it's gonna focus on this area. And the biggest thing is it'll be what type of shed, is gonna be the most useful here? What size does it need to be, to make it the most, or improve the operations at the site? As well as, what the superstructure is. And so what we typically look at here, is we're gonna go to the next slide, I think. Yeah, what we typically look at is the location it currently is on the site, if there's a better location for it. We'll also look at natural resources. In this case, it looks like there's wetlands right nearby, potentially on the next property over. Technically, A&R Atlas says that the existing recycling center has a wetland on it, but we know that's not the case. And then we look for any rare, threatened, endangered species that are there, as well as, the river itself and the floodplain, and all those related items. And actually hazardous, because that came up as part of our existing conditions research that the recycling center has a hazardous site designation. So we'd have to look a little bit more into that as well as we go through the process. Couple of pictures here of the existing conditions. You can kind of see some tears up in the fabric here. Some of the bars are bent in the bracing. You can see the damaged concrete footings there. So there's obviously need for it moving forward. Next slide. So tonight, really, there's not much for you guys to actually review. It's more to present to the public, receive feedback about, are there other locations people would like us to look at? Are there concerns about, the river and how close it is? Are there concerns about the size of it now, how it operates? One of the things we found out right now is when they come in, trucks actually have to dump the load of salt on the ground, and then it has to be pushed in with a bucket loader. And so that actually puts it, on the graveled area, and there could be potential leaching of that salt material into the ground versus being able to bring it right inside, have it under cover, and have it on the pavement as well, where it's not, able to do that. So operational things like that. So do we want a structure that's big enough or tall enough where a vehicle can fit inside? Those types of items. And we'll select probably 3 alternatives to look at. Sometimes there can be, some nuances in each of them where we have, a shed size that is going to be good for operation. But maybe there's different types. You could use, a wooden superstructure like you would have, like you see on a lot of V-Trans buildings, or you could have a structure like you currently have, the arch and fabric. Or some towns have asked for steel buildings, things like that. And then just looking at different sizes as well, depending on what, the cost and such. So we look at all those various things and, we want to open up the floor to the community. It's part of this process. So we can get any feedback, before we get, dive into the alternatives.
Chairman?
Mr. Martin?
Yeah, so this building was constructed back in the eighties,
Yes,
so it's survived 40 years
yep,
and, close to it. And it's a fabric roof, as far as I know, it's never been replaced. Although the superstructure is galvanized steel in a salt enriched environment. Is that one of the reasons why it needs to be replaced? There deterioration of the steel structure?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but the design looks like it would be portable, or you could dismantle it and move it someplace else if you wanted to. It's basic, the basic design of
Yeah.
the current structure, it sits on concrete, low concrete walls.
Yeah, it sits on low concrete walls.
Yeah.
And there are a couple options for that as well. A lot of the recommendations now are to put it on, a cast in place foundation.
Yeah,
Or the other thing I've seen is putting it on concrete piers with actual like kind of bunker silo walls that you might see on a farm, inside that as well. Those are the couple that I've looked at recently.
one of your options be a structure that could be dismantled and repurposed or reused.
It could be, yeah. We could absolutely look into that.
Are you,
Yeah, hang on. Other questions from the board members first? Sorry. Seeing none. Kelly, sorry.
That's okay. I should come to more of these, so I understand that. I was just curious, and I'm sure that you've already considered this, because you mentioned Fairground Road. Have you guys thought about, a site closer to the town garage?
That came up during, our kickoff meeting, and up by the town garage is where the current, well field is, and that's where it was before the eighties. The salt shed was up there, and they actually had issues with, chloride contamination in the town water that, it was the cause of the move from down to Fairground, or down to its current location from up there. It used to be at their town garage.
And with advances in design technology,
We may be able to look at that. That was discussed. In talking with some of the, public works folks, they felt that that location might get quite a bit of pushback from the community just because of previous issues. But it is something that we could look into.
No, that, it's actually above the aquifer. And if brine from the, salt, chloride, et cetera, bleeds into the ground, it
Yeah.
migrated into the waters, the water wells.
let's try and make sure that
I did have a field trip sometime, Kelly.
Yeah. On that, Jim, on that subject though, do we know, and of course, we gotta test everybody's memory from 40 years ago. If it was the construction of the storage or if it was the practice of the town highway employees that caused the contamination? Or could a structure be built with proper work practices that would not contaminate the wells? That,
I don't know the answer to the first part of that question.
yeah, and we won't know the answer to it, but
But yes, I think that is a possibility, because a lot of these are being lined on the bottom now with either a concrete floor or that's coated with a sealant. Or they're being lined with asphalt so that doesn't occur anymore.
The other thing that we used to
Mitigate
do
as little as possible.
was we used to salt Fairgrounds Road in its entirety. And then when we started detecting the rise in sodium content in the water, there's a half-mile stretch, at least a half mile, that it's a no salt zone.
Yeah,
So it could have been a combination of both
storage and.
storage
Road
and
salt.
spreading on the road itself.
Yeah.
it looks like everyone.
Yeah.
Wearing my conservation committee hat, some of the concerns I think we would have would be with wetlands and with the floodplain, being that there is more flood events happening, more severe flood events happening. And also, I myself personally was thinking this was at Public Works Garage, so I didn't really look at the recycling center, but there is an aquifer in that area. So on a personal resident of Springfield level, I'd want to make sure that the aquifer is considered too.
Yeah, that was discussed quite a bit during our initial meeting, excuse me.
Sure, can I get your, I don't recognize you, and I apologize if I know you, I don't recognize
You
you.
do,
Pardon me?
you do. Crystal Ann,
Hey, Crystal, of course it is.
I have two questions. The first one, this is not open to the public, is that correct?
That's correct.
There was salt available to the public before. Is that the other site that you're talking about?
I'm not aware there was access to the public for sand, I'm not aware of access to
You're
for salt.
talking about salt.
There is salt, there wasn't, since I've been here, but it hasn't been access to salt.
I was going and getting it.
Yeah, I almost believe when it was located at the highway
Well, it's about
garage,
3 years it happened, but I don't know.
when it was located at the highway garage, they used to put, I think there was a pile out there that people could go get. Out between the armory and the Public Works building. It's up against the sheds, the place. That's what you remember as well?
I remember it being by the armory, yeah. We used to steal it.
It was open, wasn't a steal.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
We
our doctor would use it.
So, is that the area that you're talking about? You're using that same area or the same vicinity? Number one, and number two, is there going to be any access for us poor people to get some salt?
I would say most likely no, but that's food for another subject, another night, another topic, I should say, and whether we locate this salt shed where it is currently back up at the highway garage or third alternative, you mentioned, about the correctional facility.
It had been discussed.
So that there may be other options available. And some of them would need to be more secure than others. If you get my drift, so that, like this salt shed where it is now by the recycle center is gated. So the public does not have access to that off hours.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Ron,
Oh, yeah, okay. Has there ever been any, report of anything actually leaking from there into the river, making its way in?
Not that I'm aware of. That structure actually does have an asphalt floor that was built on.
Right, but you mentioned how clearly they have to dump outside and then push in.
Yes,
That's not on the concrete floor, so that could easily find its way out.
potentially. I don't know the answer to that.
And we have to come up with a way to mitigate that, and if there's a structure that the trucks could actually back in completely to avoid that problem.
Yeah,
And preserve some salt that would actually make its way elsewhere versus into the shed or swamp.
yeah, that would be the ideal scenario is, and that's what we would hope to accomplish as part of this.
Just for what it's worth, the closest site that we've done water monitoring was Riverside Middle School. So it's a good distance downriver, but we never saw salinity issues that raised any eyebrows.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps or not, but we're not seeing big impact that far down, but
That far down.
we weren't sampling like right there. So
Yeah,
I think access was a big problem with that. Kind
right.
of hard to push it back.
Has that area actually been looked at, how drainage works? And how it's diverted?
Not quite yet. No, that's still part of our next portion of the project. When we look at alternatives, we'll document how everything's flowing at the moment and what we would hope to accomplish.
Thank you.
to address one of the other concerns, over here, Gary. If it is relocated at the same spot, which is next to the river,
Yes.
it currently hasn't been flooded that I'm aware of because of our flood control dam. But there's always the opportunity or availability that, especially with the storms that we're seeing, that we've been close to going overtopping and out the spillway. I don't know if we had a significant amount of water that was coming down the Black River, if it could exceed its banks in that area of the recycle salt shed.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there would be consideration for, if there would be a consideration for elevating it higher or
Yeah, that would have to be something we'd have to run by the floodplain and river scientists. It does not appear that it's in the floodway, but there is concern that when you do raise structures, that you could raise the flood elevations as well in other parts of the river. So we'd have to look at that. That would have to be taken into consideration.
That's one of the trends that we have.
The only salt shed.
The only salt
And
shed.
that we-
Yeah, I'm just thinking, okay. Maybe even do different sides of town. Maybe have
Yeah.
separate a little bit.
Jack.
Yeah, before we go too far, I'll point out, this is the salt that we put on our roads. And when there's melt off the roads, it goes into the separated stormwater overflow. So the CSO system, and that ends up in the river anyway. So I don't know how you separate what's coming from here versus anywhere else, because the stuff that I put on the road, when it's washed off, it goes into the river.
Some of it gets captured by the ground around the highways.
Yeah.
But in the runoff, it goes right into the
The stormwater system.
stormwater system.
Do you have other,
I just wanted to bring up one other thing, that we did note as, in terms of floodplain and the river corridor. The current site, where we're going here, here, the floodplain actually goes around the recycling facility and the salt shed currently. I haven't figured out 100% why. I didn't spend that much time when I was on site. But I would like to go out there and look at it and just check that out, because as you can see, the floodplain stretches out here and then it gets really compressed around it. And so, it currently shows that you're not in it, and that's maybe why it hasn't flooded before. But it will be something that we look at. And, given the size of the site, maybe we should even pull it a little bit further from the river just to mitigate some of that.
Chairman?
Mike Martin?
You had a slide for next steps. So right now you're gonna go back to the drawing board and you're gonna come back to us with 3 proposals. What time do you think that'll be? The time frame?
That'll be in another month or two.
Under 2.
Yeah. And at that point, hopefully we'll have enough information that, you guys could come up with a preferred alternative of the 3.
Yeah.
That would be the goal of our next meeting, would be to look at those. So we're gonna try and put those together fairly quickly here. And come up with that. But if you need additional information at that point, we can provide it to help you make that decision. Yes, sir.
I rushed to the board chair, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and also, Chris, just so you know, this is the 3rd scoping study, so we're quite familiar with the process and choosing.
Yeah.
Alternative.
I figured you might. I did see that there was another scoping study you had on your agenda tonight.
Yeah.
So I figured that might be the case.
Yeah, we haven't applied for the grant funds or any kind of grants to build a building.
No,
We
well,
investigated them and they had suggested that we do this first. Once we get a design done, then we can go and apply for a grant. So we have no
applied
idea.
for 3 years.
Huh?
This is, we've applied 3 different years, following this year, they told us, the scoping study first, we would make the.
You know the game, right? Yeah. Been here before. Very good.
Yeah. I like being part of the next phase, if I'm being honest, but
Yeah,
we like to help out with these too.
part of the process.
The design side of it.
Are there other questions for, Chris Rivet? Is there anything online, Karen?
No.
Okay,
Thank you. Chris, you also brought like a draft.
Yeah, so this
I
is
don't know.
part of the draft here.
You don't really need to see the other document, I don't think.
No, it was in the agenda. If people want to take a look at it, if they have questions, you can, Jeff, if they reach out to you or Christie, feel free to, send them my email address, and if any questions come up, they can send it to me. We can take those into account as well. All right.
very good. Thank you for coming in this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Have a safe trip home. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.
So the next order of business is, we need to convene into local control. And this is for the purposes of acting on cannabis license renewals, as well as a act on a cannabis license for Fireflower LLC.
We continue to struggle with communication with the state with cannabis licensing. Town clerk Robert Duchesne has received word from the state that the following licenses have been approved by the state. For renewals, TMM Dispensary LLC for a retail license, Parker Hill Cannabis LLC for indoor cultivator tier 1 license. And the state has also approved the following new license, Fireflower LLC, with also for an indoor cultivator tier 1 license. And there's a memo and information from Barbara in your packets. So I mean, I think it's accurate to say that the communication struggle will continue.
It did, it's a work in progress, but I tried to make it easy for you and put labels to each of the applicants, the information that we get from the state. And give us as much. Actually, current on all of them, so it's water and sewer if it applies. And the zoning administrator has indicated that each of them is in compliance with the zoning for their area. And what I've done for TMM and Parker Hill in prior years is based on whether it's approved or denied at the local level. I let the state know, create a little certificate that they have something and carries. Yeah. I think it's very much like liquor.
Yeah.
Or denied.
But the state already approved these.
The state has approved it, yeah.
It's the same thing with liquor, right? The state approves it and
Yeah, liquor's the opposite. Local control meets first and then the state approves.
Yeah.
This one, that's the other.
You just need us to rubber stamp these.
Yeah.
Unless any of the board members have any kind of concerns over the renewals. I would just make a motion that we, the local board approve the renewal licenses of TMM Dispensary LLC for retail operations, Parker Hill Cannabis LLC for indoor cultivator tier 1, and also Fireflower LLC for indoor cultivator tier 1.
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion and seconded to approve the relicensing of TMM Dispensary LLC and Parker Hill Cannabis LLC, as well as approve new license for Fireflower LLC. Is there any discussion from board members? Hearing, seeing none, any comments from the audience? Or Zoom participants?
Mr. Chair, you do have a member from Fireflower here in case you have any.
Yep, we'll get there. Public input.
Sorry.
Good. But thank you for that. I do need reminders, as my memory, as we just found out, is
It's a new face, so.
goes quickly as you get older. Not seeing any. Okay, so we have within our midst a representative from Fireflower LLC. I don't know, you don't have to speak to this if you want the opportunity.
I solely came down in the event that anybody had any questions or concerns that I could help address, just as I'm a co-owner of the company, as a representative from that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was okay, nobody had any questions that they were curious about. And if nobody does, I'll go home and get my kids some dinner.
Heather Frame.
I just have a question. Are you from Springfield or did you migrate here or how did you land starting a business here?
I bought my home here on Seavers Brook Road in January of last year. Recently, I lived in Weathersfield for quite a while, but I've been all over the state of Vermont, growing up here in my 45 years. So I have lived in Springfield previously and have returned back again.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah,
Glad to have you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I agree.
I just want to confirm that this is a tier one site, you're cultivating, but there's no retail going on at your site.
That's correct. We are a tier one indoor cultivation only. All of our retail will be done through dispensaries, which we will deliver to.
So wholesale.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
yeah. And I just want to remind everybody, this is for, this is an indoor location.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, there will be no disturbing the neighbors. It has incredibly over adequate filtration systems. It is completely inconspicuous looking. It's kind of just sat there on its own. You'd never know if you drove by, and it doesn't bother anybody. So
Great.
Very good. If there aren't any other questions or comments or concerns, I'll call for the vote. Starting on my left with Heather Frame,
Aye.
Mike Martin. Aye. Christie Morris says aye. Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative, recognizing the absence of Tara Chase.
thank you very
You're
much.
welcome to stay. This is so much fun.
Go feed your kids.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, but.
Exactly.
And I always ask if they want, they don't tell me welcome to stay, they just don't seem to.
They don't.
Gotta feed the kids. That concludes the local control. We'll move back into regular session. And move on to item number 3 was act on the social services policy.
Yes, this is an annual item. Please information from town clerk Barbara Shaney. And for your reference, I did include a copy of 24 VSA 2691, just so you know what it was. I had to look it up and I figured I had to look it up. That might help you guys as well.
And referencing that, that statute gives the town authority in granting local powers to allocated funds. And we have a policy that we've had in place for a number of years now,
At least 10 years.
at least 10. I would have guessed 5, but no. Do you want, Bob or Barb, do you want to just go run down through a summary of what,
So we're doing the social service one first.
correct,
And so this is for the social services, things like SEPCA, visiting nurses, senior solutions, they've all historically been on the ballot and approved for many years. That's your $208,000 special appropriation for social services. And this is it's you're agreeing to, as a select board, to put them onto the ballot with the same language that they have in all the prior years, which keeps them level funded. If they wish to petition for more money, that's perhaps they have to petition. So far, nobody's wanted or asked about petitioning for more funds.
so they're all asking for the same dollar amounts.
Right, so once this policy is approved for the past years, I'll send a notice to the social services, letting them know it has been approved, and they can decide from there if they want to fall under it or step out and petition for more money. But at least they know from this point going forward, during a heavy election cycle, what they can get for signatures.
Correct. Okay, and the firm.
When the town does this, I'm assuming we don't ask of them anything.
Yeah, there is. On the bottom, they are, sending a letter on or before December 4th. It's always a 90-day prior to town meeting date. Kind of moves a little bit each year. Requesting the funds and saying that they're going to be level funded. They also are asked for appearance at town meeting to discuss what their agencies have done for Springfield with the funds that have been awarded to them. And there's also some organizations make available automatically their 990, and the select board reserves the right to request it in this policy. They also put a blurb in the town report. That's required as well.
And I noticed at the last meeting, the town meeting, that like 60% presented. So it's not mandatory?
When we were, I used to get better attendance before Zoom became involved. But yeah.
That's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory. They are, I do remind them, each of them, that they are requested to appear. Most of them, they said 60%. Yeah, they don't all participate. It's strongly encouraged, and it's, part of the agreement.
Thank you.
And in prior years, we also had maybe one person who would stand up and represent several. Just the value of it, we no longer have a community garden. This is the safety net for any. So that was so we had to come up and make the same statement.
So a lot of these agencies are trying to get to the same, town meeting night before, so they are spread thin too. I don't think that's an excuse, but
Because the town meetings are at the same night.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Well, most towns in the area. They're trying to spread their resources for agents. I've had agencies tell me, well, we're trying for this town and this town on this night.
Thanks.
The one you have first is the social service. Second one is for.
Yeah, let's stick with this one, social service policy, so we're not confusing it. And I would entertain a motion to approve the social services policy.
To move.
Second.
So we do have a motion and seconded to approve the social services policy for the 2025 budget year. Beyond the town one, as described by the town clerk. Process described by the town clerk. Is there further discussion from board members? Comments from the audience? Not seeing any, we'll call for the vote. Starting on my left, Heather Fran,
Aye.
Mike Martin.
Aye.
Christie Moore says aye. Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative, and so approve, recognizing the absence of Tara Jane.
And Barbara, I did have one agency asking about maybe increasing the amount of female
Okay. Moving on to item number 4, and this is where we're going to get into the differences. As explained by the town clerk, this is act on the special appropriations policy.
This one is for requests for special appropriations that are not defined under the statute definition of social service. And this one is for those agencies who we don't currently have any in the mix at the moment, but those agencies or organizations requesting an appropriation Once they are approved at 3 consecutive town meetings, approved for the same funding, 3 consecutive town meetings, then they can, furnish a written request for funding in the 4th year. On the warning and the ballot. As to how 3rd year. Same thing, a letter of, written notice would be required 90 days in front of town meeting. Again, that agency or organization would be requested to have a representative at town meeting. And then 990, just like the other social agencies available.
And he also asked them to submit a letter for the town report.
Yes, exactly.
No, a report for the town report, an article.
Mhm. Yeah, letting us know, let the voters know what they did with funds.
Is it appropriate that we have 2 such entities? I think that,
We have, the ones that they've been well over the 3-4 year mark. That's the Springfield Historical Society and band, community band. We don't have any new ones in the mix.
And as a matter of explanation of why we have the second policy, the statute, and if you look at the cover page, that these entities are not defined under the 24 VSA section 2691. They're not social service agencies. Any organization in the community can petition to be included on the town ballot for funding. And the legislature allows us to allow the repeats of the social service agencies without a petition. That's the special provision of the statute. But we, as a select board, adopted a policy to allow those organizations that have had successful funding on 3 consecutive ballot questions, an exemption from the requirement to petition. Prior to this policy, each one of these organizations had to get a petition every year to appear on the ballot. And they were successful in doing that. But it was a big imposition on the organizations to do that. So we wrote this special policy to allow them to have the same privileges as social service agencies, which are required to send us a letter that says, yes, we would like funding again this year. If any organization wants to change its amount, then they have to go through the petition process. So that's why this policy is different than the other policy we just approved. Does that sum it up?
Oh, yeah, makes sense.
So, I don't know if it's unique to Springfield, but it is an exemption to the statute is written by the state, but it is law.
Heather, did you have a question?
Nope, I've got it. Thank you.
Okay, and I would just also like to say that both of these policies don't necessarily determine that the select board's in favor of them. It's just allowing the policy and it goes on to the warrant article and the voters decide.
And the trade-off for not requiring the petition is that they're not also not requesting extra funds. So there's a trade-off there.
Correct.
So I'm not aware of any that have increased
Not
for
yet,
years, yeah.
not yet. You just said you got your,
I think there might be
might be
one.
one, so.
Maybe the first one in 10 years, probably.
Or more. Okay, is there further discussion from the audience or Zoom participants? Hearing, seeing none, no further questions. I'll call for the vote, starting on my left, Heather Fram,
Aye.
Mike Martin,
Aye.
Christie Moore says aye, and Mike Schmidt. Aye. That is 4 in the affirmative and recognizing the absence of Tara Chase. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda. And that is to act on naming 2 private roads for the E911 compliance.
Yes, E911 coordinator Carrie Kellogg, who wears a lot of hats here currently, has identified 2 properties where the number of structures on the property, and on the driveway requires the naming of a private road for E911 compliance. The 2 requests are for Wagyu Court off 150 Lower Parker Hill and Ledrew Lane off 727 Skitchawag Trail. These roads are both wholly within single properties. Carrie has worked with both owners on the naming and numbering of the roads. We would recommend naming each road as requested. Yeah, these are private roads, usually.
And can you just explain that a little bit, that these are private roads, so there isn't town
Yeah,
obligation?
no town maintenance occurs on private roads. This is purely for E911 compliance. So if there was an emergency, we know which structure to direct the emergency services to.
Gary,
The only thing in our ordinance, it does say that we do provide the street sign,
the sign.
but that's it.
I would be looking, or I'd entertain a motion from the board.
I move that we approve the request to name private road Wagyu Court and Ledger Lane for the purpose of E911 compliance.
Second that?
So we do have a motion and seconded to approve the 2 roads, Wagyu Court off 150 Lower Parker Hill and Ledrew Lane off 727 Skitchawag Trail. Discussion from board members. Comments from the audience or Zoom participants? Not seeing any hands up or attempts to speak. Therefore, I'll call for the roll, starting on my left with Heather Frame,
Aye.
Mike Martin,
Aye.
Christie Moore says aye, and Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative, recognizing the absence. Good job, I guess. Any idea how long it'll be to get the signs made, or do you know anything about that process though?
Well, that's a tricky one. I don't have a timeline. I know that I'm working with Donnie to kind of add it to street signs for ordering, so signs that I ordered for some street signs that were missing requested by the post office just barely got ordered probably a couple weeks ago. And I haven't had a chance to talk to him to find out how long.
Mike Martin?
Yeah, based on the submission this evening, it looks like the state coordinator has already put numbers on these houses.
It hasn't been officially assigned because it needed the approval of the select board before I could actually say that that's what it is.
So after tonight, you can call him up and he pushes a button and
Yeah.
it goes live.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're not,
Street sign to follow.
right,
One's electronic, the other's mechanical.
right.
And just so you know, most of the organizations, the post office, UPS, FedEx, all these delivery companies, they subscribe to a service with a national E911 board. So that as soon as the state coordinator pushes the button and changes these addresses, all of these other organizations will get that information.
Not true.
Yeah, it takes time for some of the third.
Well,
party-
not instantly.
No.
but they're supposed to get it.
Google just shifted mine about 2 months ago. It's been
Yeah.
over a year.
Oh,
There is actually a fact sheet, so if you do run into that problem where your address was changed and it's not reflected yet, you
Yeah.
can report it to the third party organizations through the state's E911 fact page.
Yeah,
do they subscribe to the
Yeah.
same service?
it's
Yeah.
Google.
Google?
They are the service.
Okay, thank you very much for that effort. We'll move on to item number 6, act on committee appointments for local LTCPC,
Long-term capital.
long-term capital plan, that's a new one.
I know I had to think for a moment too.
If I turn to the page, I'd see it.
I did spell it down wrong. Yeah, the town has received applications for long-term capital planning committee, for Walter Martone. And then we've received 2 for the budget advisory committee, Doug Johnston and Shar Osterland. I recommend the board approve all 3 appointments.
I'll make a motion to approve the 3 applications. Walter Martone, Doug Johnson, and Shar Osterland.
I'll second that.
We do have a motion and seconded to approve the appointment of Walter Martone to the Long-Term Capital Planning Committee and Doug Johnston and Shar Osterlund to the Budget Advisory Committees. Is there any discussion from board members? Gosh, that sounds like coffee. Tea. I'm not seeing any discussion from board members, comments from the audience and Zoom participants. Not seeing any hands up or attempts to speak. Therefore, we'll call for the vote, starting on my left with Heather Fram,
Aye.
Mike Martin. Aye. Christie Moore says aye, and Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative and so approved, recognizing the absence of Howard Chase. Item number 7, act on demolition proposal for 52 Valley Street and 67 Furnace.
Yes, several months ago, the board ordered the demolition of 2 properties under the amended building ordinance. These orders were appealed and the board confirmed demolition of both properties unless the property owner met certain conditions. The owner has not met these conditions. As a result, the town issued a request for proposals to enforce the orders and demolish the properties of 52 Valley and 67 Furnace. Planning and zoning coordinator Chuck Wise included a memo in the packet that would include a bid summary. And we recommend awarding the contract to Luco. The town has worked with Luco on several projects and we've never had any issues with them at all. So these are, in a way, these are 2 separate properties in the sense that the funding would be 2 different. Would 2 properties. 52 Valley is in the flood zone and is eligible to be in the mitigation. In that case, the property would be demolished and purchased, demolished, and then returned to its original state, as we've done with 43 Park and 3436 Valley. In that case, it would be the grant would pay for everything if it's approved. 67 Furnace would be entirely on the town's dime, and we put a lien on the property.
Mike Martin?
Yeah, I noticed in the packet that the comments about 52 Valley Street potentially being a flood hazard mitigation buyout, but we have not made application to them yet.
We've made application, we've not received approval.
And do they pay retroactive?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is all part of the whole process, yeah.
So if we've already taken the building down, they'll,
Yeah, we take the building down, we put a lien
If
on
they
the
appro-
property, and as part of the buyout, the lien would have to be reimbursed.
okay,
So they couldn't change title.
so that's okay with them.
Yeah.
Okay. And relative to the retaining wall, is that $3,000 an additional charge?
Yes,
That's an additional, okay. And we want to do that at the same time?
yes,
So the motion would be to award the bid to Luco LLC for an amount not to exceed $46,000.
43.
43,000.
Does that include, oh, that includes the wall removal, okay. Oh, good. So it's not an extra in these numbers then?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I asked.
Mr. Chairman. You all set?
Yep.
Mike Schmidt?
We ask this question all the time. Neil Daniels is like almost twice the cost of the other bids. Is this just they didn't want to do it kind of bid, or are we missing something of the difficulty of
Yeah,
this?
no, it's not uncommon for contractors who want to keep their toe in to submit a high bid.
Okay,
I suspect that's what's happening. We all,
Okay.
to get the lower bid, we also allowed for an open period for this to happen. So that, because we want to work with small contractors too.
Right.
And this allows small contractors to fit this job in between other
Okay.
jobs.
Okay.
And they have a timeframe to do it, so they tend to slow down in the winter. So this would probably be, like December, January.
got it. Okay.
Okay, so you heard the proposal and the bid request. I'd entertain a motion for this item.
I will make a motion that the town approve and accept the bid to have the demolition of Furnace Street and 67 Furnace Street and 50 Valley Street by Luco.
One second.
We do have a motion and seconded to approve the bid of $43,000 to Luco LLC for the demolition of the property at 52 Valley Street and property at 67 Furnace Street. For the bid. Is there a further discussion from the board members? Comments from the audience? And Zoom participants? Oh, we have a hand up. Mr. Land.
Oh, so I have my hand up too, it doesn't matter.
He had first.
Yeah, just so the board knows, the money would come from the Springfield Improvement Fund, which we've been able to restore some funds into this year, so it's up to 67,000. And then once the liens are cleared, that money would go back into the fund again. It's a favorite question I hear. Where are we getting this money?
I've heard that before. Somewhere.
Are there other properties on Valley Street that are still on the list?
That are still
No,
The
list would mean that there was enforcement action, I think is where you're going with that.
There were other properties and then there was a discussion of them being pissed off, and then there was a discussion that the property owners didn't comply, and I haven't been following it. But I do have some concerns because of where I live. So
there were 3 properties recently. 84 Valley Street was under an extended order for remediation, and the owner failed to do that work, and that property was raised, and a lien was placed on that. 34 and 36 did not have any violation orders against them, but became available for this mitigation program. Those are the first 2 on the left after the yellow one in the building. So that was not under a violation notice, but it did qualify for hazard mitigation. So we facilitated the sale of that home and the demolition of that. At the same time, we did 84 and 52, 52 is in violation and that's being ordered to be destroyed. Now, there are no other properties that are currently under violation for demolition
because I thought
on
that there
Valley
were
Street. There may be properties that might have been cited by the zoning officer for health issues, but they haven't been elevated to this board yet for enforcement.
Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, if you have questions about specific properties, I can tell you what the status on each one, if you know the numbers or.
I'll ask after.
Thank you.
Question.
Sure, Ron.
The properties that keep finding themselves, out of compliance or, anyway, they're not being taken care of. Are they all from the same owner typically? The ones that are taking forever and they're not responding?
No, they're not open the same owner. In fact, there's previously been 5 properties come down. They were all stuff different owners. These 2 happen to be the same owner.
Okay, so I'm just thinking if the same owner is in violation over and over and over, maybe that's a bigger problem.
Yep.
Yeah, no disagreement. We also can't just go after one owner. When there are multiple owners,
Right, but that would be a red flag. It's the same
Yeah.
owner over and over.
yeah. And also these are under unsafe building ordinance.
Right.
So you can have a property that is in violation, is a blighted property that still the structure is safe. So you don't have the same tools to demolish, you can't order it demolished simply because it's blighted. It has to be structurally unsound.
Okay.
Oh, this came up, after we had the hearing on these 2 properties, several months ago. And we generously gave the owner opportunities to do remediation and rather than immediately order their destruction. But some people had said, as you just mentioned, that there's other candidates. Why aren't we doing anything about that? And the reasoning is, as Mr. Mulvis said, that we're using the restoration fund that only has $67,000 in it to do this work. And so we're going to spend $43,000 of that $67,000. So our capacity to do more is limited by the funds available. And I agree, there's probably others that
And
who are
this
candidates.
is also going to be refunded. This is going to be
Part of it is.
part of it.
The state will refund us for, looks like maybe, 31,000.
Mhm.
Will they pay for that wall too? Or they will pay for
Yeah,
that
so
wall?
to clarify, we will get paid for all of it eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yeah, there's a lien on the property and the property transfers, they have to clear the lien.
That's what I heard
We
you
also
say.
can, go to court to enforce the lien and get a judgment. And, that involves time and money. In these 2 instances, I think we'll get approved for the grant on the Valley Street property. The other one is a small enough amount where if the legal fees probably would exceed, the collection of the $9,000 to cover the lien. So again, we may be able to work out another situation, but yeah, at some point, we will restore the fund with these funds. I mean, with the money we got this year, got back this year, goes back, over 10 years. That we've already collected this year, so it does take time, but we will get it back eventually.
And I would just want to add that, to answer your question, all of this is a process. And we just recognize that we have a financial capacity, for funding to remediate once the orders are given and the property owners don't take action, then we can enforce the demolition if that's the order. And that there's a financial cost for that. And then also there's a capacity for enforcement. We have one zoning administrator who's working on a multitude of various problems and issuing tickets. that's a process that has to play out as well. Before we come back to a board decision to issue either a blighted or a structurally unsafe building. So that it's unfortunate that it takes time, but sometimes these things have played out over a period of 3 years or more. So that there is capacity at both the enforcement side of it as well as the financial side of it for the town. Jeff?
And there's also another layer, which, for rental properties, health and safety concerns could run through the state, not through us. So some of these properties that we're discussing actually has state issuing tickets on them too. So there's coordination that happens between the town and the state. Department of Fire Safety is the department in charge of that. So there's multiple layers going on here also.
Other questions,
We vote on this?
comments?
We didn't vote, did we?
Not yet.
Very good. Been so long.
It's been so long. Not seeing any other questions or hands up, including Zoom participants, we'll call with a vote to approve the bid award to Luco LLC of $43,000 for the demolition of the 2 buildings. And starting on my left with Heather Fran.
Aye.
Mike Martin.
Aye.
Christie Morris says aye. Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative and so approved, recognizing the absence of Eric Chase.
Yeah, and just real quickly, so with these 2 down, I think that'll be 10 buildings that have come down in the last year. I will say that one owner, I don't want to highlight it, but one owner, received a first notice and he voluntarily took his property down. So it is a process and we do actually get compliance sometimes. Others pay fines that are not in the demolition process. Thanks.
As long as you're going that deep into the weeds, there is another side of it that if a property is found in violation, rather than issue a demolition immediately, if the owner comes in and provides a plan for remediation, we will allow that. And often those extend out a period of time of several months, which was the case with one on Valley Street that the town, he wasn't in compliance and he eventually ran out of time according to his plan, and we ended up taking that one down. So there is, our goal is not to just take all these structures down. They go through the process and then we give them a chance if they want it and provide the opportunity for them to remediate. And then if they don't, then it gets to the point where we can take action. Very good. We're going to move on to item 8. First reading of a proposed one-way street ordinance.
As the town began working on repairing the sidewalk on a portion of Wall Street, it became clear that an existing portion of the roadway is not sufficient for 2-way traffic, especially with a sidewalk. As a result, we determined that the portion of Wall Street between Summer Street and Reed Street should be designated as one-way. The town asked Manistee Regional Commission to perform a traffic count study. The traffic count showed equal numbers of vehicles in each direction, so it didn't matter. Public Works does recommend that the one-way traffic on Wall Street go from Summer Street to Reed Street due to winter maintenance concerns. This request was taken up by the ordinance committee. In reviewing the ordinance, the committee determined that it would be best to rewrite the ordinance instead of just addressing Wall Street. And enclosed in your packet is information from the ordinance committee. Those would be a first reading. So hopefully tonight, the first reading done, we take questions from the public and from the board, and then we will ideally set a second, the second review and the public hearing for October 14th, 2024. Because there's a notice requirement that has to get out.
Questions? I have answers.
You do.
If you have questions.
Mr. Martone's not here.
Just, huh?
Mr. Martone's not
About
here,
the subject.
but I would like to just have you go over the 4 recommendations.
Okay, so, the select board had, referred this to the ordinance committee and, we looked at the existing ordinance and realized that there was a lot of errors in the existing ordinance, so we chose to rewrite the entire ordinance and change the language. Because of that, there are four actions that the board is being asked to do tonight. One is to designate that this proposed ordinance is a major amendment. And this evening, we're going to conduct our first review. And then we can either accept it as presented or make amendments or reject it as it's been proposed and send it back to the ordinance committee. That's the third action that we can take tonight. And then the fourth one is after we successfully complete our first review, the motion would also be to establish October 14th as the date for the second review and a public hearing, at which time we would have a public hearing, take comments from the public. And if there is no further amendments required, we could take action in the October 14th meeting. And the effective date is 60 days from enactment. And the public has 44 days to present a petition for us to rescind our decision. And if you'd like, I'll just go through the ordinance really quickly. This relates to chapter 24, traffic in vehicles. The section number is 24-35. And do you want me to read it quickly? Because this is a first hearing and review. Section 24-35, roads closed to traffic and one-way streets. A, road closed. A person shall not drive any vehicle over any highway across which there is a barrier or a sign indicating that such highway is closed to public travel or designated one way except by written permission of the select board or town manager. B, one-way streets are designated as follows. Sub one, Giddings Road at the northerly end of the junction of Route 10 and Giddings Road in North Springfield. Only one-way traffic is allowed heading in the southerly direction from Route 10 onto Giddings Road in North Springfield. Number two, Holt Street, from the intersection of Bailey Street and Holt Street to the intersection of Craig Hill, only one-way traffic is allowed on Holt Street heading in an easterly direction. And these are not changes, it's just clarifying and changing the language. Number three, Mount Vernon Street, from the intersection of Mount Vernon and High Street to the intersection with Gulf Street, only one-way traffic is allowed on Mount Vernon Street heading in a southeasterly direction. The new one is Wall Street, from the intersection of Wall Street and section with Reed Street, only one-way traffic is allowed on Wall Street heading in a southeasterly direction. And a new one, Hoover Street, from the beginning of the drop-off area of Elm Hill School to the intersection with the lower parking lot of Elm Hill School, only one-way traffic is allowed on Hoover Street heading in a southerly direction. And that is the end of the amended ordinance.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hoover Street.
Hoover Street.
Would traffic, the one-way traffic that's proposed here be allowed to go uphill or downhill? It says in a southerly direction, so that's telling me it's downhill.
Correct. Traffic goes downhill.
And so the only way to get up to the school would be go up Fellows Road.
Hoover Street. Hoover Street comes off of Douglas and loops around onto Fellows Hill.
Wait a minute, you just confused. I'm not, at my age.
You're a fire guy too, you know? There was a fire on Hoover Street.
I know where it
You're
is.
driving the truck.
I just walked it today. I just walked Hoover Street today. In traffic, what you're saying is traffic is coming downhill.
Downhill from the school. That section, after the drop-off area from the school, Hoover Street loops up around from Douglas Street and then comes back down and terminates at the intersection of Douglas and Fellows Road, the newly named Fellows Hill.
Fellows Hill.
Fellows Hill. So we noticed that there is a one-way sign.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So we're addressing that in this, and that is Hoover Street. That's not school
Not Fellows
property.
Hill.
It's not school property.
No.
It is a town maintained street.
Mhm.
You can travel, north on Fellows onto Hoover Street and access, one of the parking lots. The lower parking lot can be accessed from Fellows, but the upper parking lot, you have to go up Hoover Street from Douglas.
Yeah, there is a entrance on the downhill side to that lower parking lot.
Yeah, yeah. And what's omitted from this ordinance too is there were two one-way street designations for Park Street School, which we've eliminated since Park Street School is no longer public property. The entrance to Park Street and the exit from Park Street School were designated one way, and I spoke to the building owner. And it's private property, so they can choose to do whatever they wish. Posted or not posted.
Okay. So this is your first reading.
I have one question.
Sure.
And maybe a little pedantic, I just. Under A, road closed, a person shall not drive any vehicle over any highway across which. Does that include emergency vehicles? This,
Emergency vehicles with red lights and sirens sounding can violate 4 laws, if I'm not mistaken. One of them is speed, one of them is a wrong way.
Yeah.
On a one-way road,
I assume that, I was, like I said, it may be a little pedantic, so.
the passing, centerline violations, et cetera. Yeah. So if they had to, they would.
And traffic signage, they include this,
Yeah.
they can go through intersections.
Yeah, not stopping for, will be the fourth one. They don't have to, it's recommended that they come to close to a stop. They don't have to stop. As long as they're sounding and displaying. Good question. What is the pleasure of the board? I think we're looking for
We got 4
recommendation.
motions. We got one motion with 4 parts. Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
can I make a motion?
Mike Burke?
Take it easy.
Yeah.
I move that we designate this ordinance as a major amendment. That we've completed our first review and we accept it as presented without amendment. And that we move to establish October 14th, 2024 as the date for the second review and public hearing.
I second that.
Thank you, members. We do have a motion and seconded to declare that ordinance number 2024-0003 is a major amendment. Following this conclusion of this first reading, we will establish, and there aren't any amendments to it, so accepted as read. And we're designating October 14th as the date for the second review and the public hearing. I have that somewhere anywhere near correct.
Sounds good.
Is there any discussion from the board? Comments from the audience or Zoom participants? And I see Sue Dowdell has her hand up.
Thank you.
Sue.
Just a question. Will there be a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of Reed and Wall Street?
Somebody is, we can hear somebody, background noise. You might have to put yourself on mute.
Not me.
That's Doug Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
question was, will there be a 4-way stop at the intersection of Reed and Wall Street? That's some of the neighborhood concern.
Designation of traffic signs is the purview of the police chief. Although the select board could weigh in on it, but it has not been part of our considerations. But we will duly note your concerns and forward those on to the police chief.
Other questions? Jules, is that you with your hand up?
Yeah, I got my hand up. I'm just curious what the criteria is for determining if a street's going to be one way or not. Is it a lack of certain footage across the road, or are there any criteria that are gonna be in this ordinance, or is that based on something other than the ordinance?
I'm happy to give it a shot.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, the state has recommended widths for roads. And this is being a 2-lane road, should be at least 22 feet wide, and it is not. Particularly from the bend, well, between the two bends, I guess. So the state has requirements, so we don't need to address that in the ordinance.
So it's 20, anything under 22 feet should be a one-way road.
Well, it could be designated as a one-way road.
Could be, but
Depends on
does it have to be?
No, we're not required to, that's why we're doing this now.
All right,
So many of our class 3 roads are not 22 feet wide.
so is there other criteria that are used for making that determination? Is it based on if there's on-street parking or like vegetation or anything else?
the sharpness of corners, this is, it has some, couple of
Yeah.
blind corners on it.
Fine.
Yeah, blind corners, but that would be a different, that wouldn't. I guess you could use that for a function of a one-way street, but it wouldn't necessarily be the only reason you do a one-way street.
Well, I get that, but this is we're
Yeah, yeah.
proposing for this to be a one-way street, and that is one of the considerations is
Absolutely, yeah.
the narrowness and the blind
Safety
corners.
issue, yeah, safety concerns.
One more follow-up question, if I may.
Actually,
Is that okay?
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you get the floor.
I was wondering about the front side of Front Street. It's also quite narrow and has a blind corner in it.
That particular street is not up for discussion on this ordinance. I don't know if it's appropriate to have the ordinance committee weigh in on that at some point, or.
All right,
I'm
noted.
sure-
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just saying I noted that it would be something for the ordinance committee, not for this meeting. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
So, just to follow up on that comment, the ordinance committee may or may not take up articles for consideration, but primarily in this area, we yield to recommendations from the town manager and the Public Works Department and the Police Department for recommendations. And they usually go to the ordinance committee via a forwarding from the select board, which is how this one came to us. This was a motion that was presented to the select board, and the select board referred it to the committee. The committee would not necessarily be taking up these street issues on its own.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. Doug Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering what the vehicle count was in both directions. And have we had any input from the residents at all? Or they've been made aware that this change might happen?
I don't have the vehicle counts on me. I'm happy to forward them to you, Doug. I will say the request originally came from residents up on the street, the narrow portion of the street that we're discussing.
Okay, thank you.
And Doug, that was also one of my questions that I had written down was, and I know some of this came from the residents up in the area, but to have letters gone out or have all of the Wall Street residents been notified. So that was one of the questions that I was going. Thank you for that. If there aren't any other comments,
I got one, just a quick question.
Ron?
The Hoover Street, the section says, the proposed one-way street ordinance. But I think I heard there's already a sign up there saying what, one way?
Yes, that's right.
What was proposed, why is there a one-way sign there?
Because the ordinance didn't include Hoover Street, so we're adding it to the ordinance.
Okay. Top of my list, up to T's.
And that's what we were doing,
Great, thank you.
unless you know of any others that are one way. I mean, we were racking our brains to make sure that we had it accurate.
Yeah, I would just, I saw the word proposed and already up. So, all right.
Okay. Not seeing any others attempting to speak or hands up. We will call with a vote, starting on my left, Heather Fram,
I,
Mike Martin,
Aye.
Christie Moore says aye, and Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is a 4 in the affirmative, and so approved, recognizing the absence of Tara Chase. And we will set, October 14th has been set as the second reading and public hearing. And that's where we'll get public input as well.
That's where the public, that's where we get the public notice, and make sure all the people on the street know. So a majority of that traffic is not people living on the street.
Very good. Item number 9, act on a sidewalk tractor bid.
Thank you. The 5-year capital plan for the purchase of a new sidewalk tractor this year. The town issued a request to receive 2 bids. First from Chadwick Burross at $206,681 with a 5-year warranty. And the second from HP Fairfield, $209,575 with a 5-year warranty. The challenge is that the 5-year capital plan for highway equipment included $140,000 for this investment. This challenge is not isolated to highway. All equipment is becoming much more expensive and taking longer to obtain. This is something the town needs to be aware of as we enter budget season. That said, we do recommend accepting the bid from Chad Wasperos at a cost not to exceed $206,681. So there are adequate dollars in the fund to pay for this, but it's going to impact what we can do going forward.
Correct. But there's other capital equipment that money is set aside for. So we're using
Could
planning.
involve delaying or increasing the fund in future years or.
Yeah. Which our long-term capital planning committee is meeting to discuss just what some of those issues and items might be for funding going forward. I was asked a question at the fire station recently too, is that, well, how do you know what a vehicle is going to cost in 10 years or 5 years? And the answer is we don't. But we can look at what has been historical, what it is now, and then have some relevancy to project forward what that cost potentially could be. And it's a target. And each year we are adjusting, or we could adjust our capital planning contributions. So you might not catch it the first year, but as equipment goes up, there is time in there for that planning to be able to make adjustments for year 2, 3, 4, 5, etc.
Yeah,
It's not an exact science.
and I'll throw out my other thing is, I think at some point you could be looking at increased regionalization of services. Because the prices on some of these pieces of equipment is becoming, I think, just too much for some communities to take on. And right now, I think the ladder truck, which we bonded for in 2001 for $601,970. I know that because that was the first thing I did when I was hired as finance director in 2001. That same truck today would be over $1.5 million. So your fund isn't keeping up with that, but we are going to be able to, we are going to need the ability to fight fires with a ladder truck. So there are neighboring communities that might be something using mutual aid that we could discuss with other communities. So there's something to look at. Regionalization, I think, is coming. Because smaller communities can't afford that.
Oh, okay, Heather.
and when you guys are doing the annual budgets, you're allocating about 10% of funds amongst all departments for longer term projects like the fire trucks and that's the average on most of the time, 10%-ish.
It's odd. I never looked at it that way. It's different for different departments. we look at what the 5-year schedule dictates and go off that, what we expect to need. Not that we're setting aside a certain percentage of any budget.
That's interesting. I wonder if it works out in each
Yeah, I'd have to do it
year. Yeah,
historical. I mean, it'd be easy to do.
thanks.
Police department, for example, we were doing a car and a half a year.
Yeah.
So how do you prorate that in percentage, 150% of a vehicle?
No, but what percentage of the
What
budget
percent of the
is set
budget?
aside for that? is what
For
I
that,
think is the
yeah.
question.
Got it.
And we know that vehicles have gone up astronomically there too.
Right.
And I would just like to comment that, you go back a decade and more, we were not funding our capital expenditure programs adequately, and we made some significant adjustments to that. In lieu of the cost of replacement vehicles in 2024 and beyond, that is not going to be adequate. Just like it wasn't then. Yeah,
So I think we've seen an acceleration of costs in the last 3 years.
Mr. Chairman,
Mike Martin.
I move that we accept the bid from Chadwick and Barros for a new sidewalk tractor at the total cost of $206,681.
Second.
With a 5-year warranty.
We do have a motion and seconded to approve the bid to Chadwick Barros for $206,681 with a 5-year warranty.
Thank you.
For the purchase of a sidewalk tractor. Is there further discussion from board members? I have one question, delivery availability
Yeah, this one is which will be available for this one.
for this coming one.
Gonna be done with the old one.
Generally, we use them for parts, so it's becomes so expensive. If the parts are not compatible, then, there's 2 things we can do. One is we can still use it for smaller projects like on town property. But it is not getting the same wear and tear and use.
Right.
As a newer machine can handle. Another one would go with private sale.
Doug, recognizing, Doug Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering, didn't we purchase one, just for clarification, a couple of years ago, sidewalk plow? And I think we have 2, but I'm not sure for clarification. But if we have 2, I guess my thing is this one the exact same thing as what we purchased before?
It's not the exact same thing, it's compatible. But I'm not sure if the one this is replacing in terms of the heavy usage, if that one is compatible. So yeah, so that's where I'm not sure, if it's compatible with the one that's replaced.
Yeah, I know, I'm, thanks Doug for asking that. I had the same thoughts is, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, a couple years ago, it might have been a little bit more than that. Time flies, but.
Might have been 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was right when I first started.
Yeah, and it seemed to me that one, we might have got is that the one we got from Canada? It was available in Canada or?
Or, yeah, some parts of it.
Some, yeah. And so we were able to get that one on a short notice as well.
Right.
And at that time, we had that conversation and the other one was, seemed to me it was a German name or something that,
And yeah, we couldn't get parts for
they
that.
couldn't get parts for
So
it.
that's why I think that might be this one. So I'll make sure I'm remembering this one versus one we did 3 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, but the full complement is 2 sidewalk tractors.
Okay, other comments before we vote? Seeing any hands up or attempts to speak, we'll call for the vote, starting on my left with Heather Frame.
Aye.
Mike Martin.
Aye.
Christie Morris says aye. Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative, and so approved, recognizing the absence of Heather Frame.
Yep.
Oh, no, about Tara Chase. We'll get there.
Sitting right here.
Did he call you Heather Chase?
I did not. Item 10. Receive and possible action on the fiscal year 26 budget calendar.
Yes, attached in your packet is my proposal for the FY 26 budget calendar. If the board would like to make any changes to the dates, please let me know. I would also like to take this opportunity to ask any Springfield residents who might be interested in the budget, town budget process to consider applying to serve on the Budget Advisory Committee. Applications can be found on the town website or obtained from the manager's office. And if you have any questions about what that committee does, please reach out to me. This calendar is based on last year's calendar. I do want to mention that I suspect strongly there'll be one change in the process. Is that the Budget Advisory Committee goes around and meet to different sites. Doug Johnston, gotta give him credit, a really good idea. There's no reason why that process has to start after they receive the budgets. They can, because they need to see what the needs are. And in fact, they could have a positive impact, just kind of impact with the department heads on the creation of the budgets. So as soon as we get the budget committee together with 7 members, or at least 7 members, we'll start lining up those site visits sooner, which will spread out the work, and hopefully won't have a week where they try to visit all the sites in town or something, as has happened in prior years. So this mirrors last year's budget. I did check with Barb Shane, and she needs this information by January 29th, I think you said, in order to make the town meeting. This is earlier, because I expect to be on vacation starting the 24th of January. So that's why I kept it on this schedule. But
Yeah, your schedule's fine.
yeah, it works for you.
Yeah.
Well, last year we ran into an issue with, was it the Budget Advisory Committee? We're waiting on their letter of recommendation or whatever, that we couldn't do it a meeting earlier or something. Just, we'll be, if they're
Yeah.
starting earlier, maybe that'll help them as
Yeah,
well.
right now, we listed it that with that first Monday in January 6th, which is not a regular board meeting. But we've had them issue a report by that date so that we could finalize the action at the final public hearing. There's no, depending on how the workshops work out, we perhaps could get that earlier. But if we're still doing budget changes on December 23rd, you can't ask for their report until we've finalized the budget that we're going to propose.
All I was pointing out was that
Yeah,
last
I'll
year
just
we had a
make it
date
clear.
and we couldn't adhere to that date because they weren't ready yet.
But no, it wasn't last year, it was the year before.
Year before,
Yeah, we made it last year.
very good. Okay. We need a vote to approve this for right now.
If you're ready to approve, and mostly, I always give it at one meeting before I need it done, in case, so people can check their
Oh,
calendars.
you got it here adopted on the 23rd. Very good.
Yeah, that's what we did last year, because people wanted to check their calendars.
And I'd also like to point out, you mentioned the Budget Advisory Committee members, and I know the school district is always looking for Budget
I think
Advisory
they've got a
Committee
full
members.
group already.
They do already?
Yeah, they started searching in July.
Just putting a plug out for them. You know, we're cooperative members here
Yeah.
at boards. All right. Item 11, review and act on the Northern Gateway scoping study alternatives.
Sorry, I have an inside joke. As the board recently with the Clinton Street Road study, road diet scoping study, the final report for scoping studies asked for the board to determine a third alternative. As with the road diet study, there is no commitment tied to this project. We'll also note that the town has multiple projects such as the water and sewer line replacement that will need to happen before this project can be considered. However, the report requires an alternative to be chosen in order for the scoping study to be complete. And in your packet, I included the report with everything other than the town alternative. This time, just on page 9, it lists the alternatives. The, first one is, no action, leaving things the way they are. The second alternative is a shared use path, behind behind perpendicular parking of the private parking lot that's there, with buffered bike lanes. Alternative 2 is the shared use path adjacent, to the roadway with separated angled parking. And alternative 3 is a shared use path adjacent to the river, with separated angle parking. The one consideration that was discussed is that the town does not own that parking lot. I've had a couple of conversations, and it looks like because the owner of that parking lot is not willing to reduce the amount of parking spaces due to what they hope is future use of 100 River Street. So there's one option. Look at the picture. One option that would not require any easement or anything from the owner. Well, two options. Obviously, doing nothing doesn't change anything. I believe it's alternative 2, the shared use path adjacent to the rock, roadway with separated angle parking. It's 1 or 2. That would not require any changes. And easements. No, I think must be alternate 1. Where the green thing. No, I mean, in terms of, so not requiring any changes to the parking lot. So therefore not requiring any easement from the owner of 100 River Street.
Alternative 1.
Alternative 1 is putting. Is that not a shared use path next to the river? I'm looking at the map,
On page 96.
page 10.
I don't think so, because it says
Yeah,
shared use path behind the perpendicular parking. Which is where it is now, behind the perpendicular parking.
The sidewalk is,
The sidewalk.
which is on the roadway.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Jeff a question?
Absolutely.
So are you saying that alternative 1 is our only option because of the tenant or the owner of Rivers, 100 River?
Yeah, it's the one where we control the land where we can do the path right now.
Right.
No, the other plans where we have a river walk along the river would impact their parking, which I think both are not interested. They're reducing their parking spaces.
So alternative 2 is not an alternative. Just making sure I understand. Unless they agree.
Unless they agree. I know I sent them the proposal showing the number of expected parking spaces in each scenario. And then we go down. They currently have a little over 60 parking spaces. Depending on the alternatives, it went down to the low to mid 50s, and even one option brought it down to the high 40s.
Yeah.
Which bit?
Would the sidewalk on the east side of the road across from the river, would that be consumed to make space? Because obviously you're going to move walkway and bike lanes out into the roadway. So how are you making up the room for the actual road car traffic?
I know you're narrowing the lanes.
Yeah,
You're narrowing the lanes, narrowing the bike.
so there would be sidewalk on both sides then? or a walking, biking path.
Oh, okay, no, you're right, so alternative one does show shared use path. It's weird, in the description it says behind, but in the graphic, it shows, definitely shows it along the river.
Are you talking about sidewalk?
Yeah, so it's alternative two is the one that doesn't, that's definitely along, the path is along
Road,
the road.
and there is a sidewalk on the other side, 5
There's
foot.
a sidewalk on the other side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So is that gonna stay?
Yes,
On the north side, yeah, the sidewalk is on the north side in all of them.
the sidewalk stays on the retaining wall side.
I know what you're
All
at,
the
so I think the
options.
roads are skinnier.
Yeah, okay,
Yes, that's correct.
that, okay, well,
Yes.
Would that put a change on the side for vehicles?
We could,
I mean, as busy as that section is.
The road
might
is,
slow them down.
the road right now is 12-foot lanes with 6-foot shoulders. And the proposal is
11.
11-foot. And a 2-foot bumper. On north side, a 10-foot shared use path and a 5-foot green space and a 13.5-foot travel lane with only a 2-foot buffer on the north side.
Right.
So right now you've got two 12-foot lanes plus two 6-foot breakdown lanes
Yeah.
or shoulders. And that would be reduced from, do the math, 2436 down to 29. On the south side, the river side, the 5-foot walkway would be increased to 10 feet and a green space of 5.5 feet would be added. And on the southerly end, easterly, I'll call it the easterly end, but it's actually the southerly end. That green space will vary based on the topography that's available. And we're not taking any private land in this proposal, number 4. It's all public property.
Jeff, based on what you're saying, alternative 3 is out.
yes.
2 and 3 are out. 1, 2, and 3 are out, right?
No, one.
No, one seems to be the only one.
One is do nothing.
No,
No,
No, 0 is do nothing, that's what confused me, why I got confused on the
Oh.
numbers.
All right,
Is option one is really all.
no, there's no action. There is no, that's not an alternative.
No action is not an alternative.
Zero, that's what got me messed up on the,
Yeah.
doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3. I mean, I think that, given the small amount of confusion, I don't have a problem with inviting, the engineer to come and make sure everything is
Yeah.
definitely clear on this at the next meeting.
kind of a nice more color.
Yeah, we'll have all of this we can look at. I know we've been through the
Yeah,
public hearing, the second hearing, we've done all of that. But I think it may make sense, given this, I don't want any confusion on this, even though we're not committed to anything.
Yeah.
Anything here would, if we were able to get grant funding to pay for it, it would be good after the water project.
Yeah.
And everything, so you're looking at a few years down the road at least, if not 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But so there's definitely time, we can ask and make sure we have definite clarification on which one is.
That segment of the water projects, have we awarded a bid for the engineering of that yet?
No, we have not even approved bonding or anything for that.
Or
So the plan was to go for the bond vote in this coming March. For the Main and River Street portion.
Yeah.
Which would probably be a 2-year project once that starts.
can we go to bonding before we have an engineered design? Because
We
we don't
don't.
know what the cost is.
We've done, we had Preliminary, we have the preliminary engineering done for project J. It has a plan and.
And that's the
process.
segment from Main Street to the VFW.
Yeah, well, from there's a Storm Bridge to the VFW.
Oh,
There's probably be a 2-year, construction project. Just because of traffic concerns and it's not an easy place to work under our main street.
I think that's the plan, get the engineer back in here to put them.
Yeah, I'll tell them that.
Color coding and then I think we have some further information regarding what alternatives may not be doable.
Right.
Which may
Would not be allowed.
our choices anyway.
but alternatives 1, 2, and 3 are not allowed then.
2 and 3.
Well, number 1 shows, at least in the graphics, shows a walkway along the river,
Shared use.
shared use path along the river, which means relocating the parking.
It's on page 11,
Yeah, but the
Page 10,
page 10
but page 11 has a
and
blow
the
up.
detail on page 11. So
and
the,
detail on.
the definition, the description of that one says the shared use path behind, not in front of perpendicular parking. So that's why I think it'd be good to have the engineer here just to clarify.
Well,
And it's not urgent. I mean, because
Right.
we're not closing, we don't have to close this grant, I think, until December. That might be next days.
all right, so are you recommending we don't take any action tonight?
Now that we've really gone through with some detail,
All right, postpone for engineer,
I've confused the issue enough for when you can.
and we don't table things, because then we have to take motions to.
Who was suggesting we're tabling?
I'm saying we don't table.
Didn't come out of my
We
mouth.
sit at the table. Thanks, Mike. All right, so that concludes the new business portion of our agenda. We'll move on to the financial reports.
Yes. The financial reports, which the board will sign tonight, the warrant action are, here, and on the town website. If you have any questions, please reach out to the finance department. They maintain all records of all financial transactions for clarification.
All set? Moving on to letter F, future agenda item proposals. And I'll start with Heather.
Nope.
Mike, Martin,
No,
I'm not gonna throw any in. We're getting into budget session. Right?
Yeah, right.
Mike Schmidt,
No,
committee reports and announcements. Are there any committee reports that would like the opportunity to?
I'm gonna assume at this point, everybody has heard. But the FAA has approved the maintenance of a 5,501 foot length to the runway. That I believe that shortens it about 75 feet. But that is not a concern to any of our current jet processes, or if the C-17 needed to land. So the airport commission is extremely happy about
That's
that.
great.
Yes.
That's great news.
and what was the original proposal, 4,700 feet?
They were gonna it was.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Okay. There aren't any other committee reports or announcements? Oh, which committee you want again?
Cemetery Commission.
Barb,
So the Cemetery Commission will be holding a stone cleaning event on September 28th. And anybody who is, this is gonna be in Summer Hill, 8 to noon. Anybody who's interested in helping clean some of the stones, come on up, we'll have all the product and kits available.
I just want to acknowledge, don't know where that came from, acknowledge the group, the Vermont
Old cemeteries.
Yeah, it was so exciting. And I mean, there were a lot of the residents that went out and just like it was very exciting and it was unexpected and they did a great job for the time they spent on there.
Right,
So,
yeah, they were, so they gave us the instructions on cleaning stones.
okay, great. No, it's beautiful.
They won't be there. It's
Yeah.
just gonna be the cemetery commissioners and Ron is one of them. At this event and, we'll just see who turns out. We'll
Awesome.
scrub brushes,
September 28th.
September 28th,
The time is
8 to noon,
8 in the morning.
yeah.
Well, you don't want to do it 8 at night.
Well, it's Saturday too.
It's very easy to do. It's just a process of wetting the stones.
Yeah.
spreading the stones.
Yeah, they've done some already, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a group that,
Yeah.
that's done a bunch.
Good. That's great.
I could add a little bit to that. The community is really getting, more involved, noticing that the cemetery commission is actually being extremely active right now. I know for our smaller cemeteries, I know a lot of our neighbors are, really eager to help out. And as far as getting them cleaned and all that, the neighborhoods are complex a bit to get work, so. Yeah, it's, the Volca thing is really nice.
That's great.
Excellent, thanks. That it? Okay, I'm gonna move on to letter H, which is other,
There's a hand up over here too.
we're talking about committee reports and announcements.
I wanted to get some clarification from Mike on the airport runway, because I had a conversation with Bruce Johnson today. He told me that the runway was not going to be reduced.
Well,
So what I heard you say that it is, you know, just
so the distance that we wanted it to stay is staying. There is 75 feet that will not be regenerated, and that is due to foliage and easement issues. It does not affect any runway traffic. What Bruce would have said to you in technically, yes, it's not wrong. I mean, well, technically it's wrong, but figuratively, it's not really being affected. So
The use won't be
impacted, so.
There is a reduction in width, but that again will not have
Not
any
have
effect.
any impact, yeah. And that's due to
That's
drainage,
being funded by the
Yes.
FAA.
it's being funded. Yeah. There'll be multiple parties involved.
Not one.
Not us.
Not us.
Right,
It's a state-owned airport,
right.
but most of the funds
But
come
the,
from the
but the
FAA.
the federal government is participating.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna move on. So also in our packets, the select board members receive are the Springfield Airport Commission minutes of August 22nd, Springfield Cemetery Commission minutes of September 4th, Springfield Housing Authority minutes of August 13th, Long-Term Capital Planning Committee minutes of June 3rd, July 2nd, and August 6th, Springfield Ordinance Committee minutes of August 26th, Springfield Parks and Recreation Committee minutes of July 26th, Springfield Public Works Highway Department monthly report for August, Springfield Public Works Wastewater Division monthly report for August, Springfield Regional Development Corporation minutes of July 23rd, Springfield Town Library Directors Report for August, Springfield Town Library Finance and Audit Committee minutes of August 12th, Springfield Town Library Trustees minutes of August 14th, Springfield Town Library Publicity and Advocacy Committee minutes of August 19th, and Springfield Trails and Rural Economy minutes of August 29th. Copies of those are available on the websites. Hard copies can be retrieved in the town manager's office. And as I mentioned, the select board does receive copies of all of these in their packets. We're gonna move on to letter I, which is citizens' comments. This is the point in the agenda where citizens have the opportunity to speak. Generally on items that have not already been discussed. Citizens' comments. Ron.
I have one. I've reached out to the police department numerous times. And observed, make sure that I stuck in a row, asking where their American flag is. And it's been, like I said, nearly 2 months. And I tried to get in touch with them. It's not, they don't have one or what the problem is. If they need one, let somebody know, but that's not right.
That can happen right here.
Yeah, I can make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. West Marshall.
West Marshall, Springfield. One, originally I came up with just one statement, but I've come up with three.
Three?
I know you should not mention anything that's already been discussed, but talking about the parking lot out there, any green space along that between the road and the parking lot would only create driving hazards because some people would cut the corner short or too wide, and also it'd be obstructions in plowing. Right now, it's easy to plow with open space to have up through the parking lot, up there on River Street. I have to go around the pole, but if they put green spaces in there, that'd only make it more of a hazard to plow and keep that clear between the road and the parking lot. Number two, how come, this is for Mr. Mogus, how come some dead-end roads have signs and others don't? As for example, Commonwealth is a dead-end road, but it doesn't have a sign indicating that it is. I mean, yes, you go down Major Court, but that's congested with the bad pavements and a lot of cars in there. A lot of people come down there just turn around because they thought it was a throughway or something like that. And number three was my original complaint, I guess you want to say. I feel that might not like this, but I feel that and I'm not even sure if I'm the right spot. I'm gonna start here. I feel that the police department has not been doing their duty that they're supposed to be doing about hazardous vehicles. In the last several months, I've noticed a severely damaged pickup, and I've noticed a few other my friends have noticed it too. The windshield is severely smashed, and the driver's side window, you can't see through it because there's so many cracks and taped up, stuff like that. And comments have been made to the police department. It says, we're aware of it, not your concern. And I'd like to see that vehicle taken off the road, and I would like to see some action taken against the driver like that for several months. I'm not sure what it is a pickup, a light colored pickup. I'm not sure the make of it, but it has been seen in around town a number of times.
Yeah, thank you, Wes. I'll talk to the police department about it.
Sue Dowdell.
Sure. So just want to make everyone aware that coming up on Thursday, the state's attorney will be at the library for Ask the State's Attorney. We've got other events coming up. Springfield on the Move's coming, the Chamber's coming. So I didn't get the calendar out yet, but keep an eye out for all these great events.
Yeah, thank you for that announcement too, by the way. Others, we have other comments? Here we go.
I just remember that I was looking at a brochure that somebody had handed me for Harkness Park. And I realized that it said that the parking lot at the former family center was available after 5, but my understanding is that becoming apartments now and will no longer be available. So that Hartness Park brochure should probably be corrected.
Was there an author listed on it?
Or I'll get it though. I have it.
My guess is it's the Trails Committee.
I assume so, because I think I probably got it from Chuck. Gregory.
Okay. Are you looking for action from this board or?
No, just kind of putting it out there as
For comment and feedback and.
if anybody reads the minutes, maybe they'll see.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just real quickly, there was a block party about from South Ridge or on South Ridge on Saturday. I went up this Saturday afternoon towards the end of it, and they'd had over 100 people up there, and it seemed to be going very well. Public Works, thank you to them for closing off both ends of the party. But I think it was a good event. I heard positive comments while I was up there, and they even gave a real quick interview. You can find it on YouTube. So I picture. Yeah, I don't have a good side. They did the best.
Both of you.
Yeah, that wasn't, you weren't in the bouncy house, right?
No. Not yet.
Other comments or citizens' comments this evening? Okay. The select board does have an item on the executive session agenda. Is that still possible? Okay, so I need a vote. We'll have a vote to move into executive session for purposes of discussing contracts. We're under one VSA, section 313, small a, one, large B, capital B, to discuss labor relation agreements with employees. Town manager is invited to the executive session. And I'll need a motion for that, and it takes 4 members in the affirmative.
I move that we move into executive session for the purpose of discussing labor relationships with the town manager president.
And contracts.
And contracts. And contracts.
Second.
We do have a motion and seconded to move into executive session for purposes to discuss contracts and to discuss labor relation agreements with employees. And the town manager is invited. I'll call for the vote, starting on my left. Heather Brand.
Aye.
Mike Martin.
Aye.
Christine Morris says aye, and Mike Schmidt.
Aye.
That is 4 in the affirmative, and that is enough to comply with statute, and nevertheless to go into executive session, recognizing the absence of Derek.
Yeah, no action will be taken after.
And there's no action to be expected.